does storm out here, Lord, doesn't it? Oh, welcome back, my cheerful chariots. I was not expecting any of you to be in my house again, especially what happened last time. So, do you recall that video I made about Nocturne last week? Well, hot dibbity damn, because we still have more to discuss about it. But Cereza, what is there to discuss? I thought you already went through everything in your last video. Look, if I was as thorough as many people would possibly think I am, then call me frickin' Nostradamus, because I'm about to predict the future. Now, before going into the main video, I wanted to talk about something a little bit small, and that has to do with the casting. So, yes, Allrox is in the show, as well as Richter's mum being confirmed to be a woman named Julia Belmont, and apparently Alucard is going to be in the show as well. So, hooray, I guess. That's for the update. Oh, and for the fact that the Queen of the Vampires that was shown in the trailer, yeah, that's Elizabeth Bathory. However, her first name is not what it looks like. Alright. In the original video, I made 4 distinct points. Now, the first and main point of the video that caused the video to be made in the first place was Annette's race swapping. Now, the second point that I made was that any form of media, depending on what it is, should be more faithful to what they are borrowing from, or whatever it is that is being adapted. Now, the third thing I critiqued in the video was that studios, like the one that are making the Castlevania Nocturne anime, should not respond in the ways that they did to fans who merely are asking either questions or are voicing their concerns over changes that they feel were unrightfully made. Now, the fourth point that I made in my video were my positive criticisms of the trailer. Stuff like that now it takes place in France. Obviously. However, it seems that the comments that I got regarding the video and regarding the subject matter, they mainly focused on the first 3 points rather than the fourth one, and they created a new, completely original 5th point that I somewhat believe that the original Castlevania anime that was released on Netflix is pure and utter garbage. When I never said such a thing. But you know what, I think it's best to go by comment and we can answer it all there, as I think it's positive to have an exchange like this. This main point of the video is to re-highlight some of my points, as when I did make the original video that sparked this whole discussion, I was more so in the emotional fields if anything, so now I'm going to try and focus my best on factual information, stuff that isn't so driven by, you know, emotions. Because I'm a vampire, what the fuck are those? So, let's get ready and respond to comments, shall we?
God damn, other me making me read these stupid lines. Oh, whatever. What happened to I don't see color? Huh?
Well, in regards to this quote, I never said that in the video, nor did I ever imply to it. But, if we were looking at it from a broad perspective, yeah, that statement is practically bullshit. Everyone sees color, it's just a natural fact of life. The only people that cannot see colour are literally the blind. Now, the comment below mine, I actually quite agree with, so if you want to take a read at it, you can reverse the video back to where the comment was shown in its entirety. In conclusion, this probably only got brought up because I was talking about Annette's race swapping or I was talking about Isaac's race swapping, which I admitted in the video was not a bad race swap. I just said that I missed the old Isaac that we had back in the games. There is more about this that I want to bring up, but I think it'll be more relevant later on, so I think we'll just move on.
You're doing some serious reaching. I agree.
You know, we could have had a proper discussion about this in the comments, but considering that your comment was very vague and snarky, I really couldn't base anything off of this. Literally, this statement can be applied to anything. So yeah, this comment means absolutely nothing, considering you provided no argument whatsoever, and you didn't provide any evidence for said argument, because there was no argument to be made. So considering that this comment is literally nothing solid, we'll just move on. Bro, I'm a Castlevania fan, I'm not omniscient. What you could do is, if you do see this video, you could actually reply in the comments with what you actually meant, so then that way I'm not here scratching my freaking heads out trying to figure out what the hell you meant by that. End of statement, moving on.
So, just complaining about race swapping, Hollywood studio, and the fact that there is not an exact adaptation, parentheses, which have a known history of bombing, parentheses question mark, nothing about the actual trailer content, parentheses again, except a small mention of French Revolution, parentheses, and completely ignoring the pure gold that is the first Netflix Castlevania series. Man, you must be fun. If it's anything like the first series, it'll be an honor to experience Castlevania Nocturne. Yeah, for real, me is such a freaking bore to be around.
Yeah, the same anime that I directly acknowledged and even made some examples of in the original video. Yeah, that one. You can't tell me that I completely ignored it when I was literally talking about it in the video. Sure, I didn't go into depth as much as I did with Nocturne, but the video was not about the original anime, it was about Nocturne. But let's get one thing very straight before I continue. I do not hate the Castlevania anime. In fact, I quite enjoyed it upon watching it. However, I am just not a fan of the episodes after Season 2, because I think that the show kind of went off the rails and tried to do its unique thing while struggling to find the identity that made Castlevania what it was to begin with. It felt far too Game of Thronesy, and considering around the time that many different shows and many different platforms were trying to aspire to be the next Game of Thrones, yeah, it just kind of meshed in with all the others, and that's especially concerning considering that we already had material for what could happen after Season 2. You could have literally adapted Curse of Darkness in the way that the anime adapted Dracula's Curse, but instead they just decided to go a whole new different route and just make the story not as good. Yes, I'm a firm believer that Curse of Darkness' story is far better than whatever we got for Season 3 and 4. The characters didn't act the way that we all know them to act. Like, so for real, would anyone have expected Alucard to be sleeping around with 2 freaking Asians? Oh, and don't even get me started what they did with Hector. For all of Season 3, he felt like a lost puppy in a dog shelter. But let me move on to another point that he made. Shows that have been more accurate to the source material have a history of bombing. I would love to see, like, a list of examples that you can provide, because genuinely I'm curious. I tried looking around for, like, anything that resorted to, like, anything accurate to their source material, and the only thing that I can come up with is anime. That's literally all I can find. But there are plenty of shows that have bombed because they strayed away from the source material, one example of which being the recent Witcher. Oh, and remember Halo? Yeah, that wasn't a good show now, was it? And neither was freaking Rings of Power. So yeah, if there are examples of shows that have been able to be successful by not doing anything with the source material, that's great, but there are far more examples of shows bombing because they strayed far too much away from the source material. Look, I can obviously tell that you like the anime. That is a-okay, that is fine in my book. I could care less if you dislike it or like it. But do not expect me to sit here and sing false praises to 2 of these shows just because they have the name Castlevania attached to them. Because look, as big as a fan I can be, it's just as important to critique something that you love as it is to praise something that you love. Because you want that thing to get better. Perfect example of this is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, where if you saw the initial trailers for it, it looked nothing like the game that we ended up getting. Wanna know why? Because the creator of Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, as well as many of the Castlevania games that this anime references, he took in all of the criticisms that he was getting and made Bloodstained a more perfect product for it. And he couldn't have been able to do that if everyone was just giving him false praises. The best real-world example that I can give for this is the idea of dictatorships. I know this sounds a little bit off topic, but hear me out. The core philosophy of this ideal is that everyone wants to appease the dictator because no one wants to get killed or have anything bad happen to their family or themselves. So, they kiss their boots and sing high praises even though they know that what they are saying is factually incorrect. So when the time comes when actual essential decisions have to be made, they are going based on false assumptions and false information because they want to appease the totalitarian, ending up in a government that either fails or won't last very long. You can apply that same logic to anything. A show, a company, whatever you want it to be. So yeah, the underlying problem is that many of these studios unfortunately do not understand how to take criticism. Hell, even I myself have been criticized before, and I don't tell people to fuck off or don't fucking watch my shit. No, I take what they have to say, and if it's valid criticism, I listen to it and see how I can improve furthermore. I don't shun everyone because they're a hater. No, it's because some haters have valuable criticisms. You don't have to listen to everything, but the things you do have to listen to are vital. Anyway, that was the end of Cereza's life advice. Moving on.
Am I getting paid for this? No, seriously, am I getting paid? Oh, fine. Alright. As a Castlevania fan, I don't really want a faithful adaptation of the games. Don't get me wrong. I do believe every change made throughout seasons 1 through 4 was great. For every Isaac there was a Hector, so to speak. However, to ask sincerely, as a Castlevania fan, Do you really believe the stories in the games are masterpieces? Series 3 and 4 had their fair share of issues, but Curse of Darkness, at least from my perspective, was not a good story. Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night had passable stories, and for its time, Rondo of Blood was a huge step up in terms of narrative quality in Castlevania games, but for a modern show, I just don't see it holding up. Despite its flaws, I'm a huge fan of the show, and I believe it's because I deviated from being faithful that it was able to give us something incredible, for the most part. I still think the adaptation was true, just not faithful. All that being said, I do find it weird that Annette was race swapped, and a new character being brought in looks way more like the character from the games. As much as I appreciate some of the changes made to the series, I do believe that changing too much can push extreme negatives and potentially ruin the series if not dealt with care, creativity, and purpose. Before I judge Annette in the show, I want to watch it first and then develop a more informed opinion. Yeah, why didn't frickin' Cereza do that?
You know what, I thank you for leaving a comment, as it offers a new perspective. It goes to show you that not all Castlevania fans can agree on certain things, and you know what, that's a-okay, because you know that offers a diversity of opinion. To answer your question about whether or not I think the games had masterpiece storytelling, no. But do I think that they're good and can be tolerable? Yes. Now, as to which games have tolerable stories or great stories, that's a difference of opinion that you and I can have. Frankly, I believe Curse of Darkness has a great story. Not a masterpiece, but I do think it's good. Considering the rest of the series, I think it's pretty okay. Like, it's enjoyable from start to finish. Even Lament of Innocence is enjoyable, if you look past certain aspects of it. Even the GBA games had great stories. Minus you, Sokolman, you're not canon. I think Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night are good stories, considering how well each of them can transition into the other, just like how I think that Dracula's Curse can easily transition into Curse of Darkness due to how well it was narratively written. Now, do I think they're masterpieces? Once again, no. Even the crowning gem of Castlevania, which is Symphony of the Night, it still doesn't have a perfect story. But what it makes up for a ton are the characters and their development within the story. Problem with Castlevania though is that we don't really see much of this until much later on during the Metroidvania era of Castlevania games. So games like Dawn of Sorrow, Aria of Sorrow, Harmony of Dissonance, Portrait of Ruin, and Order of Ecclesia. Those games focused more on their characters and their development rather than the overarching story itself, because those characters evolved with the story. And hell, for the most part, narrative-wise, Dracula wasn't mainstay for a lot of those stories. But if you are looking at this video by chance, I am curious as to what makes you think Curse of Darkness doesn't have a compelling story, because I am interested in hearing your point of view, as I am for all points of view. But if you haven't seen already, I have done a review of Curse of Darkness, and if none of you have seen it, I suggest checking it out. I think it was a well-made 30-minute video that I crafted within the span of a week. So check it out if you haven't. If you ask me though, Castlevania embodies a lot of what other Konami franchises have, and they mix it all well together. Castlevania is known for its music, its innovative gameplay, its art styles, and for the fact that it constantly steals from itself, which is a great quality. Also, to your point that you said that the adaptation was true but not faithful, I think that's a good way of wording it. Because it is sort of the events of Dracula's Curse, it's just not the complete events of it. Because, as we've all seen in the anime, certain aspects of what happened in Dracula's Curse are kind of absent. And I think the best way to explain the show is that, yes, it happened, but not in the way that it was presented. Like, for example, how you meet Cypher Bernardes. Sure, the way you find her is the same, but the area that you find her in is completely different, and the circumstances behind all of that are completely different. The way you find Alucard, completely different. And hell, some of these changes I would consider to be positive ones, as they help in a narrative way to help build the band together. Which just makes me wonder why they couldn't do Grant. But, oh well, that's, once again, a small nitpick at most. My theory though is that he was supposed to be in the anime, but they decided to give all of his characteristics over to Trevor and just scrap him completely to save on the budget. That's my theory. But yeah, before I can make a final judgment on Annette, we all have to see the show first. And I'm praying to you, like I've said multiple times, I'm praying that her character is good. I really want it to be good, because I don't want to be right. I want to be proven wrong, that these people can actually make a competent character once again when they've race swapped them for no frickin' reason. For me though, in the ideal world, we could have had Annette stay the way that she was and have this brand new character as a separate character, because to be quite frank with you, the anime doesn't need to be one-for-one accurate to Rondo of Blood. I mean, come on now, the story has been remade as many times as frickin' Simon's story has been remade. The only one that isn't canon though is Dracula X for some reason, and that's the one game that labels Annette as Maria's sister. I kinda prefer that one, but you know what, the consensus is the consensus, and if the developer said it, well there you go.
I've heard of Castlevania, never played it. I thought it was silly. A monster hunter clan hunting Dracula, the OG of vampires in all of monster cinema, kill him and then proceed to fight him whenever he gets resurrected. That's just as silly as the current trend in Call of Duty games. But then I gave the anime a chance. Loved it. While I get those who grew up with the franchise, some people don't understand that even the most successful franchises that get adapted to the screens, big or small, not all of it gets adapted truthfully. Harry Potter wasn't completely faithful adapted in all 7 movies. The fuck is a Harry Potter?
I'll explain to her that later. But yeah, although I don't agree with the analogy that you made comparing Castlevania to Call of Duty, I can kinda see where you're going with. And I'm actually kinda glad that the Castlevania anime was able to get you into Castlevania, as that is hopefully the goal of the show. Hopefully. An example of some Castlevania games that don't really have Dracula as a star villain would be Lament of Innocence, both of the Sorrow games, and that's practically about it. However, although he technically does show up in Lament of Innocence, what makes him unique is that he's not just big bad boss that just you have to fight at the end of the game. Instead, he is the one that formulates all the events of the game to happen. He is the grand mastermind, and that, to me, I think it's a complete reversal of the character that we've known up to that point, of just Dracula being, oh, he's evil because they killed his wife and he's angry, blah 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 blah. No, we got a Dracula before all that. He was conniving, he was clever, and most of all, he was damn charming. I do like the Harry Potter analogy, as it kinda describes what the current Castlevania situation is, except I guess a little different. Considering that, considering it's more modern day, a lot of these changes seem to be more drastic than otherwise be. Yeah, me personally, I'm not asking for a one-to-one. I do believe that these people are competent enough to make a good story without resulting to modern day trends like race swapping. It's just that they do it anyway, because, you know, that ESG score. Like, if they were to do an anime based on Simon's story, do you know how freaking boring that shit would be if it was a one-to-one? All I'm saying, don't do needless changes. If you need to make changes to make the plot more interesting, do it. Go for it. If you think it's actually going to be a good change, do it. Go for it. I am proud of you. But stuff like this are needless. Anyway, moving on.
It is actually really interesting hearing about this from someone so close and familiar to the games. I have never played the games as I was either not born or too young or too poor to, though I did know about them. But as someone who watched the show, I think it is a really well made show. And as for the race swapping, I don't really comment on that stuff most of the time. To me, if the character's race is essential to the story that is being told, then it should not be changed. Not saying if it does not, it can be changed willy-nilly. In that case, I personally would like to keep it as is, as long as it is not hurtful stereotypes. Now, if the character is poorly written and their race was changed to just call people who think the character sucks racist and stuff, that is something I'm fully against. Anyway, I guess that what I wanted to say is I really like the video. Even though I don't feel as strongly as you do, I still see where you are coming from. I hope you have a great day, stay safe. God, my future dyslexic ass.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the video. I tend to put a lot of work and effort into making these sort of things, because my philosophy is either go big or go home. So, I don't like race swap changes, because to me it just shows that either the studio itself or the writers are just plain lazy. Like, we've gone decades of making original black characters, whether it comes in movies, TV shows, or just pre-existing shows and they add new black characters. It's only a modern concept now, where now we're taking pre-established characters and basically just changing them from what they used to be. Like, imagine if we're getting a TV show of Spawn, like, within the future, and they're not gonna cast a black actor to play as Spawn. Do you know how furious people on X or Twitter would be? So, I ask you this. Why is it okay for white people to be blackwashed, but then it's completely, like, lynchable to whitewash a black character? My point here is that it's not good no matter what it is. Just make an original character and call it a day. And if that character fails, oh well, you tried and learned. Save it for the next time you try to do it. Not everything is going to be perfect, and that is okay. But this is just disingenuous to say that you're virtuous for adding representation when you're taking pre-existing characters that had no business being in the position that they are now. I've heard arguments come from people that, oh, these race-swapped characters are not taking away the history or the past of the original characters that came before them. Let's take a good example of Isaac, shall we? I want you to search up either Isaac or Isaac LaForez Castlevania on Google or whatever search browser you use. Tell me, what are the results that show up? Do you see a majority Isaac from the anime? A majority Isaac from the games? Or do you see a mixture of both? Personally, I've seen the first. Granted, I'm glad that people are going to probably learn about the Isaac from the games when they search up Isaac from the anime. But let's be real here. How many people are going to dedicate themselves to learn about Isaac from the games when they only care about Isaac from the anime? Let's be honest here. Anyway, I hope you have a safe day as well. Thank you for leaving a comment.
Don't get me wrong, I agree with the race swap, but if the changes are good and work, I can agree. That said, I am also concerned about this race swap. The problem isn't the race swap per se, it's the lack of respect for the source material and the why. Given this is France, I'm wondering if they are going to do something about Haiti. Slight miscalculation in the spelling there.
Oi, we're not out here to call out other people's grammar mistakes.
What? I never said I was obligated to your terms.
Now, for the first comment, I can kind of see where it's going here, but considering the nature of the sentence, it's kind of hard to interpret, but I'll do my best with this. So, you're saying that it could be an Isaac situation, and the race swap can actually be good if the character is written well and is well immersed into the plot. That being said though, considering that we don't know that, it also is a case of concern considering we've seen many shows and movies do the whole race swap thing before and kind of fall flat on their face. Now the second comment is more so saying that it's not the problem of the race swap, but it's more so of the writing, which me personally I think is a contributing factor, but we'll move on to the next comment. Now remember that thing I said earlier that I was going to mention but it was best saved for later? Well, now's later, and now I'm going to tell you what I was going to say earlier. They did not have to make Annette black to expand into a new continent. Why? Because if we are going to assume that the only reason why the show takes place in France is so that we can get a whole new world perspective in the Americas, do keep in mind that Haiti was not the only French colony at this time. We had places in Asia, the Middle East, the Oceania, and most famously, we had areas in the United States and Canada. If you really wanted to go there, Annette's race would not have mattered, because we would have still been in any part of the globe. And do keep in mind at this time as well, that there were white people in Haiti, just as there's probably white people in Haiti now. Granted, I don't think there's as much as there used to be, considering, you know, events. But I wouldn't know because I've never been to Haiti. All I know is of the historical background that Haiti has. Do I think it's interesting that they want to do that? Yeah, but I don't think Annette should have been race swapped just for that to happen. Like, I'm sure if they spent a little more time in the writer's room and the designer's room, they could have come up with something. Plus, if we are going the route that Juice is still alive and he's going to be mentoring Richter Belmont, it would make sense for the main story to be occurring in France. Because guess what? His name is French, so it would be kinda obvious to assume that Juiced is French. Also, fun fact about Juiced, he has albinism. Yeah, I didn't know that either. Honestly, the more I learn about him, the more I fall in love with him every day. Anyway, those were my 2 cents on it. I have a feeling we should probably move on because future me is about to throw a fit.
Why is this one so long? Oh my god, I did not get paid enough for this. I think that you have to realize that they're not trying to just appeal to you specifically. The reason to listen to the fans is that the fans know what they want to buy. However, the show itself has an extremely large audience of its fans and has expressly shown that it's doing something different from the games in many ways, which is doing extremely well for them critically and monetarily. Critics love the show and audiences love the show, meaning that they're doing something right. The show's success shows that these fans of the games that are complaining are niche and largely negligible when it comes to this new medium and adaptation. The series was obviously never meant to portray the original game's story. It's written different, it changes things. That's just the premise of the project at this point. We already know this.
Ooh, the wording here is it's a little spicy. So, at the end of your paragraph, you state that we already should know everything that you just discussed, but at the beginning, you say that I need to learn that not all shows appeal to me. I know that. I never once said that shows should bow down to my every whim and need. All I said were ideas that I think that the show could have benefited from. That is all. But there are a group of people on a certain website that do attack creators to make changes that benefit their needs. I don't know why I'm the one who has to learn the lesson. Oh look, from a first glance, all these movies and shows seem to be very successful. Oh wait a minute, whether a show is critically acclaimed or not, that still does not stop the fact that funding will always be a problem. And considering how Netflix likes to waste their money, they usually don't like giving it to people that really need it. Rest in peace, Inside Job. I heard you were good, but I never stood to watch a single episode. To say that a show is good because of its success with critics and audiences is kind of disingenuous, considering that we've seen many instances of either the critics or the audiences not being able to agree on anything. And we've seen shows that are utter dog shit, but now they're getting second seasons for God knows what. So clearly, the math is not adding up here. I'm not saying that the Castlevania anime is dogshit and it bombed. I never once implied that, and I'm never going to. However, to say that it's a success and it's good because of the metrics that we are going by with your logic, it just doesn't add up. Because other shows have not been able to be as good despite the fact that they are still going. Hell, by that same logic, if Naruto is still going on, does that mean the entirety of the series is good? No, of frickin' course not. I hear people all the time complain about Naruto and Boruto's filler, and yet it's still going strong and it's still successful.
There is no reason for them to make these fixes because they're not fixes. They're simply preferences. There was nothing wrong with them to begin with. You just have a certain preference of what the story should be like. In the case of Sonic, those preferences mattered because the only value that movie has is nostalgia bait and taking advantage of fans of the Sonic property, which is why those movies are completely dog shit for half of the time and when Sonic is not on screen. Also, the company that redesigned Sonic literally got nothing out of that except having to file for bankruptcy and closing the doors of the studio, lol. The original Sonic was unappealing to everyone who saw it, not just Sonic fans.
Should I have called them fixes? No, probably not. But that still doesn't mean that my main point of these criticisms does not exist. It doesn't change the fact that they probably changed in its race for reasons that most of us don't want to admit. Just because someone doesn't see something wrong with something does not mean that that thing has nothing wrong with it. And for the Sonic portion, you're mixing a little bit of half-truths and a bit of your own personal bias. Because when you mention that you believe that the movies are complete dogshit for half the time when Sonic is not on screen, that's an opinion you have. Not everyone shares that opinion as you do. However, you're lecturing me that not everyone has to share my opinion, which is kind of disingenuous considering you just went against your own argument within the second paragraph or the first one. And you say studio like it was an independent company, like it was one. No. Sure, that specific studio had to close down, but the company is still going, and it has many different studios to work with. So yes, it's unfortunate that that studio had to close down, but that's a common occurrence in the business. Game publisher studios and movie studios alike get shut down all the time, and we hear about it all the time. it's not that big of a deal, at least in this argument anyway. And according to your logic within the first paragraph, a show or a movie has to be well received. And according to Rotten Tomatoes, or IMDb, it did perform well. And it has the money to back it up, as well as the audience scores to verify this. And if we were to account for your own logic, you can see that it doesn't add up.
I really disliked a lot of Alucard's later characterization, and I felt parts of the story were too meandering. But those are actually evaluations and criticisms of the work at hand, not just comparisons to source material, which are critically useless when they are explicitly telling a different story that is loosely based on the source material.
Now, as for what you say about Alucard, yes, I agree with them. However, you completely ignore that I said the exact same thing, except I wasn't specific about it, which I probably should have in my defense, but that doesn't mean that I didn't mention it at all. Also, the only references I made to the source material was when I was talking about Annette and Isaac. Those were the only examples that I was referring to. And even when I talked about Cypher and her source material, I even said that the anime version of Cypher was better than her source. So you try to paint me as someone who wants a one-to-one, and how that the anime fails at every single way to create the perfect Castlevania adaptation is just completely false and inaccurate. Also, no. In seasons 3 and 4, yes, they are telling a different story. But you also have to account that for seasons 1 and 2, they are telling the same story with just different forms of events. You cannot tell me otherwise. Like I said earlier, a lot of the events in both the anime and Dracula's Curse happened. It's just either the way that they happened, where they happened, or when they happened. If you ask me, this comment is a little disingenuous to what I am trying to get at, because you're trying to frame things in a certain way that just aren't the case. But, like everyone, I must remain respectful, and I'm glad that you decided to share your thoughts with me in the comment section.
Oh my god, jeez, couldn't you just write this in 2 sentences? 2 things. The race swap makes little sense as Annette and Maria are supposed to be sisters. And 2, they likely only did this one because they had to, as their real interest is the next game. Aside from Aurochs, the characters in this one are hardly changed. I'm worried about Shaft missing though. Kind of important. Sisters in the SNES continuity. They're just friends in the original Rondo release. Actually, it kinda does, and I think only Annette was race swapped. Remember how Isaac's swap was used to see the rest of the world outside of Wallachia? Well, as some people pointed out, Haiti, France's main colony back then, was also going through a revolution of its own at the same time the French one. We're probably going to see the race swap being used to expand the world beyond France too.
Look, as much as I want Annette and Maria to be sisters in all of the continuities, because for some reason they were only sisters in Dracula X, unfortunately, in every version of Rondo of Blood, that just does not seem to be the case. Granted, they have a very sisterly relationship, which I find very important considering that they practically almost look the same, except that Annette looks like an older version of Maria. Jesus man, who carved that neck? Oh look, it's the same guy from earlier. This time he actually has a formidable sentence. Although he doesn't provide proof, which I guess we'd still need to work on, but don't worry, I supplied this proof a while ago. Yes, I know what you're referring to by Isaac traveling the world due to his arcs in season 3 and 4. However, don't you think if they wanted to focus on a Castlevania that explored the world, wouldn't you think that they would focus on a game like Castlevania Bloodlines? Considering that whole game shtick is that you're traveling through the entirety of Europe. Hell, it takes place during World War I. You might as well do it. Elizabeth Bathory is there, or Elizabeth Bathley, so you might as well do it. Also, Haiti could be hardly called a main French colony, considering how many influential colonies that France had. Remember the fur trade in Canada? Yeah, they made a freaking killing off that shit. Now, do I believe that they could have gone with the idea to explore the world? Yes! But I do not believe they went in the right way, because they literally could have added an arc within the story and added a new character to give this excuse. However, they chose to do what they did. Oh, and for everyone I responded to, please do remember that I'm not trying to attack you personally, I'm trying to go for your points. So if it sounds like I'm maliciously dogpiling on you, I'm not. I just get very passionate when I'm speaking on things that I care about. So yeah, that's the explanation for it. And yeah, those seem to be all the comments, or at least the ones that needed to be addressed.
Can I go now?
Yes! Future me, You can go now.
Oh my god, thank the Messiah. I am out of here. I'm free.
Now, God, the impatience with some of myself is just astounding. Am I really this impatient in the future? Oh my lord. Anyway, I hope everyone was able to see through my critiques, points, arguments, whatever they may be. And I'm hoping you also had a fun experience along the way, as, once again, my main goal is to strike discussion, not to cause any differences between the two. Because, frankly, I want everyone to come together and enjoy something Castlevania, because that truly is my goal. I'm just saying, though, that Nocturne has me a little suspicious. But, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, do whatever you want. I'm not your frickin' brain, and I'm not a parasite controlling your brain. Anyway, I'm Sir as a Valentine, and I hope you had a cherryful time. Oh, what the hell's that? How the hell is it still raining outside?